Welcome to the second episode of EVinside, a roundtable discussion on e-mobility. We're hosted by Get Your Studio. We had a lot of positive reactions last time on the first episode, but also some feedback that the Dutch language isn't that accessible for non-Dutch people. So as of this time, we're going to do it in English. My guests today are veterans in the e-mobility space. Starting here with Olger from Case Fabric, Robert de Leeuw from Pionics, Marke Muller from Pionics, and Mireille from Windkraft 5. Sorry. So our main topics for today are discussions on open source and on the non-technical, the human side of e-mobility, so for instance user experience. But we'll first start with a round of introductions. And I would like to start with Olger for people that may not have seen the first episode. So, Olger, take it away.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm Olger. In e-mobility since 2009. Started at New Motion, currently known as Shell Recharge, charge for what's left of it. And after that, did many different things. Last CTO job was with Blink Charging, and currently working on Case Fabric. That's a case engine. That's a pretty technical thing. Building a EV field operations system. So that's my intro. Mark.
Robert. I work at Pionics since 4 years now, 2 years. Been in e-mobility since 2013. I joined iHomer 2013. Patrick was already there, and he was like, "Yeah, we're working on this e-mobility stuff, and you've did some protocol. You wrote some stuff on different protocols before. I worked on Bluetooth and Zigbee in different roles before that. Do you want to help out with writing the OCPP 2.0 spec? It's almost done. We just need like 1 or 2 months. Yeah, fine, cool. Something new to learn." That got me to chairing the OCPP work group for 7 years. I did OCPI, wrote that a lot, then switched jobs, and now at Pionics doing open source.
Okay, Mireille?
Yeah, so I'm Mireille Klein-Koerkamp. In the EV mobility sector since 2010. First started at a big grid operator, working together, amongst others, with the New Motion on charging at home and at the highways. Then we started from that company Allego. So I'm one of the founders of Allego, had different roles there, mainly technology-driven roles in IT and hardware and operations. And then afterwards I transferred to Mylance, one of the starters, founders there, and ended there somewhat more than a year ago. And now I'm a manager, interim manager, professional, board member, those kind of things, but still in e-mobility.
Yeah, I'm Marco. I joined e-mobility 2020, so I'm kind of the newbie here in the room. So I studied physics, afterwards created my first company in the drone space, so also electric mobility, but flying. Back then it wasn't all military, so we did mapping and civil engineering related drones. So very precise 3D model reconstruction of mining sites, road construction sites. Sold the company 2016 to Intel, then worked with a bigger corporate for some years in the same domain. 2020 we left, looked for something new, and did some tech consulting in different companies, and realized, e-mobility is such a crowded field. There are so many people all doing the same on the tech side. Implementing OCPP, implementing ISO, and I realized, actually the same happened in the drone space. Everyone was programming basically the same stuff. So we thought what happened there was, after a while, open source emerged and solved the basic living system of a drone once and for all for everyone. And we thought let's try the same in e-mobility. So that was 2020. And since then we're growing the Everest ecosystem quite a bit. I guess we'll talk about that later. And then also found Robert along the way on some ICNC in Berlin, 21, 22, I don't know. And thank you for being here, the first non-Dutch visitor of your show.
Forces us to do it in English, I think.
Yeah, so that was a plus, but also I don't want to have an only Dutch thing, even if we do it in English. E-mobility is much bigger than the Netherlands, and I think that the program should show that. Interesting that we can go directly to the open source part. So way before 2020, there was already an open source initiative called Motown, funded by Allego, where you worked at the time, and where Olga and I helped design and partly develop an open source platform. The idea behind it at that time was that about 80% of all investments were put into functionality that everybody needed anyway. So everybody was wasting a lot of investments on doing the exact same thing slightly differently. So we worked on Motown. Unfortunately, by the time we completed it, the funding dropped and we didn't start community building. I think the community building is one of the key success factors for open source, but perhaps we can go to Olga on the Motown and how you experienced trying to get something open sourced.
Wow, yeah. That's
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a complex question.
When did you guys start with Motown? Because I was already at
12,
13. So I think
joined.
we started with this idea, and then together with Auke Hoekstra at the time, we started plugging the idea from, hey, it would be helpful for NewMotion and Allego having the same funds to share the core space, right? You've got this guy, I didn't know at that time, but nowadays I do. You have this guy called Simon Wardley. He's got this whole idea on how things move from custom made to commodity. And that's what you see happening. Is a bit what Marco says for the drone space. All these lower layers like OCPP, later on OCPI, everybody needs to build them, everybody needs to maintain it. So why not do it together? It's not where the difference is.
And in the end, they also don't bring extra value.
Exactly.
Indeed.
You won't win more business or sell more chargers or
I
sell
think
more
it's
kilowatts
even the other
hours.
way around. So the moment you don't have to focus on these kind of protocols where people can work together, it saves everybody money to actually focus on where the difference is, and it enables collaboration because, for instance, OCPP is a hardware collaboration. It's a charge point with the back office. OCPI is more organizational collaboration. So the moment you get these things for free, it's easier to actually add value on top of it, and that's basically what the whole open source ecosystem is about.
Yeah.
And that was also initially the idea. We were looking at what players do we need in the market and who can actually bring value instead of who bring value in things that everybody's copying the same way. And that's still something we can do today because there's still players in the market who basically don't bring any value or only a small amount of value, but who ask a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's still, 13 years later, that's still a challenge of today, how to make sure that those parties that actually bring value also get the market. And
it also slows down a lot of adoption of new technology because everybody's like, we want this new functionality, but we don't have enough resources to build it. So it's the lack of resource to be able to build newer versions of OCP or build some new functionality in. Well, if that would be done by a community, it's way faster. And maybe you as a company don't have time this year to work on something, and maybe you would help a bit next year, but still, because the community did something, certain functionality becomes available to you and you can start even using it.
And if I look on our ecosystem, so I think OCPP, so we are more on the firmware side, like in the actual box. I think you talk more like on the server side, but the problems are similar. So we have to get all the backends together and everything compatible to do the same on the car side. And nowadays on energy management, so we have a couple of those ecosystems. And I think a super critical point of open source is you don't have 100 implementation of the same stack. It consolidates to just a few, maybe even one. I mean, if you look on Bluetooth, and maybe there's 2 open source or 1 open source stack for that out there, that's sufficient because everyone can fork it, modify it, and go wherever he wants with that. But the good thing is it consolidates also, let's say, interpretation of the standards. So you wrote OCPP, you have heard so many questions, I guess, about like, what do you meant with that? Should I do it this or this way? I guess you thought like you defined it exactly, but end of the day, people have different interpretations, and if you have a code base, which everyone uses, all this wiggle room goes away. And everyone shares that. And the second aspect, if you have this shared investment, as you said, like, oh, no one has time to invest in new things. So, for example, we did a lot of the OCPP 1.6 stuff within Pionix. Then Alphen came in and sponsored a lot of OCP 2.01. And now others came in, I think Compleo and a couple of other players coming in and doing a lot of OCP 2.1. And it works that way. And end of the day, everyone gets a benefit from everything. So I think now the adoption rate of OCP 2. something is 10%. And with open source, everyone could be there immediately. Like if you build on a joint foundation and if then someone else updates that, it's just a pull request away, more or less, to go to the next level. And with nowadays, everyone builds everything themselves. It takes years, and that's what we currently see in e-mobility. Like, how old is the OCP 2.01? Like, more than a decade?
It's 8 years old, I think. The real 2.01.
Yeah.
That first draft was ready before I joined.
And it's a 10% adoption. Like, come on, guys, we could be better, right?
But you see the same on the OCPI side, where in the
Everybody
Netherlands,
will be stuck on 2.1.
in the Netherlands, everybody was like super early because we had tenders where OCPI was required. And I recall that in the UK, it started to be picked up as well as like the second country that started using OCPI. And that resulted in the UK guys, oh yeah, we started implementing the latest version, 2.2. And it needed, I think that the first time they connected to was NewMotion. And NewMotion said, well, we don't have 2.2, so if you want to work with us, you need to implement the older version. And they started pushing the UK companies to implement the older version instead of themselves upgrading to the later version. All of this, like, if you want to work with us, so you just adopt to us and use the older version first, which is basically really weird. But yeah, it's reality.
That's how these things work, right?
Yeah.
When you have the power to set the market and you're not capable of moving on, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So that's...
and the current version is 2.3. I haven't seen anybody actually implementing that. And they're working on releasing 3.0.
Now, we do see people that are implementing the truck reservation, which is like an extension of OCPI, but there's a specific use case that you want to have.
Yeah.
And you can add it to 2.1.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen, right?
On the OCP side, we see a lot of people like, oh, I need this bi-directional, whatever charging stuff. And like, can we patch it into 1.6? Like, no, we don't want to go there. It's in 2.1. Let's just go there.
The big issue with the specs is that they're not backwards compatible, right? And that's one of the. If you take a look at
they rarely are.
These specs are no.
They rarely are. If you really look at all protocols, they all do a handshake.
SMTP works for ages in the same way. HTTP works for ages in the same way.
1.1.
Huh? It's
all 1.1. It's all the same version.
There is HTTP 2.0 now coming, but
that's a handshake.
But we're now discussing from a technology perspective, what we believe is really good for the market is that we would have these kind of open source developments. But if you look from a business perspective and you want to bring added value to your company, and especially back in the early days, but I think it's still happening. If you invest in these kind of companies, you want to have a return on your investment. And if you then have the unique selling point, I can sell my company with the latest version of A, B, or C, then it's worth more. Yeah. So there's also kind of, from technology perspective, it's wise to do it, but from financial perspective, it's kind of...
I would disagree in a way. I mean, yes, you're right. The one early bird who has the newest version will profit. But honestly, 99% are not the early birds, and they will profit from going open source.
Yeah, but we know that 99% is not the early bird.
Everyone thinks he's the early bird.
Indeed.
But look out there.
And there's also a lot of companies that say, yeah, we need to own our own IP because that makes us valuable.
Yeah.
But if the IP became commodity,
then
there goes the value of that IP.
That's completely true. But this is how financials.
No, but if I now look on like the companies we're working with at Pionix, they all had their own IP on firmware and OCPP. And initially it was a benefit, but now it's a big burden. How's it called, legacy or technical debt? Yeah. They have to maintain this huge stack, and they're falling behind, and it's like huge investments of like dozens of developers without any value in it. And what often then happens is like, okay, after a while of regretting and thinking, and it takes months to years, like, okay, screw it, let's go to open source, let's migrate over to Everest or whatever there is. Because like they realized open software isn't just done and then you can move on. There's always continued investment.
Yep. So I think in the end, the winners in this market will be those companies who are so agile that they can work with open source, keep up the pace and the speed. But yeah, it's not there yet.
Agile is always important. Yeah.
And I think the second aspect is also open source, there are different philosophies. There's, let's say, one philosophy which says like, you can take my open source, and if you build something on top, you have to donate it back, which means like you can't have private IP. And there's the other class of open source, that's what we try to do, is if you build something on top, do with it whatever you want. You can just take the, for example, Everest code base, and as long as you don't sue anyone, it's fine. And this way, which allows building up private IP, works, I think, quite well in this commercial-driven ecosystem where we're in.
And then the IP is the added value, which is unique.
Yeah, but
commodity stuff is not.
It's very complex.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit like have the costs by someone else and then take the advantage, right? This is what you see with public structures. So for instance, the case engine is also open source. It's GPL with a reason, because it's very specific piece of software. And I don't know if this is true, for instance, for firmware, for a charger, that it's very specific, that people can use it for free. But you also need to ensure that your company and everything around the ecosystem survives, right? And so, when you go back, Spring Source, for instance, one of the biggest like Linux, right? Biggest open source projects in the world. And yeah, they are actually funded by companies that see value. They buy the company, and then they actually pay the employees. Yeah. But for these kind of things, and that's I think what we had at Motown, that the costs were not equally divided. And then people think, okay, wait a minute, if I take all the costs, but I don't see the advantage, or the advantage is only for others, it doesn't work anymore. So that you need a balance.
You're totally right. I mean, this is a huge debate in the open source ecosystem. Like, how do you sustain it? How do you financing it? And the GPL approach kind of forces everyone. If you use it, fine. And if you continue developing it, like adding something on top, you have to give it back. In this way, the community grows. On the other side, so I think it's really good argument for going GPL, like restrictive licensing. And the opposite, what we are doing is like permissive, like do it whatever you want. The benefit of that is you're boosting adoption. But you're not guaranteeing, like you're also boosting ecosystem creation, but you're not guaranteeing that people will contribute back. But what we actually see is the software stack is so big, and if someone finds a bug, they could keep it for themselves as private IP of the bug fix, but they contribute back because like maintaining your private fork with your private extension is so much overhead, it's actually easier to contribute back quickly and then swim on that wave together. And you maybe can delay it.
It's not only contributions, right? I understand. I did different contributions to different stuff. When you hit something, you say, hey, I'll just give it back. But giving it back has a huge advantage because the maintenance is thereafter with someone else.
Yes,
right?
That's the point. And so I know there's a debate and you can have different opinion, but in my opinion, it's like being as permissive as you can, and then just having this network effects we're talking about, and forcing with this way contribution back, and with this being permissive, drive your user base and getting more adoption. So I think then you have the best of both worlds. But I know you can argue about that. I know Linux kernel works different, but also Linux kernel, I mean, you have no alternative. You just go with it, and there's clear separation layers, like where you can put something on top, like an application which not getting infected by the licenses. But especially if you have a such tightly coupled thing like the Everest stack, it's getting more complicated, not saying impossible. On the other layer, things like if you look at the current cloud software development, we even see something new, this AGPL things, where this new license types, like where even running the software in-house, like I don't know, if you download something and run it yourself, normally all of the license say like, oh yeah, you can do that. There's no limit to that. But if you're running on a server and providing a service with that and doing a lot of money, then maybe some people want to get that restricted, and that's what we now see with the server software, where startups develop something, Amazon picks it up, runs it on their cluster, and they make the big money.
Elasticsearch, which is not a very small thing, but they hit this issue.
Yes.
But if we then look to that open source, what could it bring that would improve, for instance, the experience of the EV driver? So, other than business-wise, what could it bring?
I think this is a nice bridge to this RFID card.
Okay, you're waiting for it. Go for it.
For the viewers at home, there's someone at the table wanting to discuss RFID cards.
Yes, and that's me.
Big fan of improving that.
Yeah,
me too.
We should.
Everyone is.
Because, now you have Everest, right? And hardware vendors start using it. I follow you a bit, so it takes up, and who knows, it becomes the Linux of EV charging. Would be pretty cool.
We would be proud. Yeah.
Yes, but it's not impossible.
No.
Right? And the moment you start adding features to that stack, everybody can use them if they actually upgrade their chargers.
No.
Where we've recently found that some companies with a lot of chargers just don't do that. So that's another story. And when you add a feature where you can actually use the chipset of this RFID readers in a proper way, I know we did it like this. We were there. We actually said, "Oh no, we'll just use this ID."
We'll fix that later.
No. Wait. I'm here now for 13 years. I always said, why do I need to put another card in my wallet, which doesn't bring me shoes? So I never agreed with the RFID card. Okay. But there was no other way. Yeah. They told me. They convinced me.
No, but
it gets more complicated.
It was just for demonstration purposes, and the demonstrators.
I even think that there was no charge for charging. I think the first charges in Amsterdam, it was for free. No. So who cared that the RFID card was not secure?
And you even got free parking.
Yep.
Yeah, with free parking. Yeah,
and not just in Amsterdam. In the beginning, there were hardly any cars, so there was no business.
You probably knew who was doing the fraud because you had a list of cars. Yes,
and that also didn't help in increasing the security of the card itself. And now there's so much infrastructure out there that doesn't use any MyFair protocol or whatever.
Yeah, but it's in there, right? I think that all chargers that are like since from 8 years back to now, they'll probably have a reader that can do some kind of security.
Yeah.
So just secure your contract number into this card and you're there. It's done. Right?
It's not that simple because you have an install base, and a
you
lot
have
of
to
those
replace cards.
a lot of those old chargers don't get firmware updates anymore. So
I think
those won't work.
It's a hen-egg problem. Like if you now releasing new cards which are secure, old chargers can't use them. And end of the day, what probably we have to do as an industry is like make the chargers ready for those new card types, wait 10 years until it's proliferated, and then we can get the cards live.
Fall back, right? If the secure one is there, then use the secure one, and if it's not possible, use the RFID number, right?
So how about making the problem bigger or simpler?
Let's make it bigger.
Yeah.
So one of the problems is at the moment the card is insecure, right? But you still have to have the card swiping and the plugging in. One of the benefits of auto-charge is that you only plug in and you do use the MAC address. What if you would combine the MAC address from the plug-in with the card, so the combination is pretty unique.
Except that it gets super messy with Volkswagen cars because they
Forget about Volkswagen.
Yeah, they're so tiny market share.
Yes.
No,
Then you don't buy
or lose
Volkswagen. That's
They all have the same address.
if it kills their market share, Volkswagen will
Or check the
start
prefix. They
behaving.
have a
5
fixed
years
prefix.
later. So the problem is we talk about usability. So whatever we're discussing at the table kind of feels like we're breaking usability. So end of the day,
You can do it backwards compatible.
yeah, but if it's
Like we
backward
should have done
compatible,
OCPI backwards compatible.
but if it's backwards compatible, if I would fake a card, I would just copy the unsecure part and can still have an unsecure copy.
Sure, there are always reasons why it's
No, but-
not optimal right now, but if we start moving,
No,
we'll get there.
that's what I'm saying. We should start moving, like releasing new cards in dual mode, making new charters in dual mode, and 10 years in the future, you try to collectively
Perhaps-
disable the old one.
Perhaps I'm a bit crazy, but there's
Okay.
now a large group upcoming, which are not the lease drivers, but private drivers. I'm wondering if they want to have a card.
Of course not. Bank
Of course
card.
not.
I just want to use my bank
You
card.
want to use your bank card.
Oh, you're just using your car.
Or
and
my
charge,
car.
yay.
Yeah, but then plug and charge in
without
without
the
obligations and
yes, the
It's
limiting
so-
Additional cost.
structure of
So
the
slow.
X509s.
It's
Yeah.
so
but we can do it
slow.
differently, can't we? We can do it
I
differently.
think there is a
it's tricky.
secure option for auto charge. There was some kind of paper published on that.
Yeah.
Oh, we can
Yeah,
try
yeah.
that.
But the main thing there is, and of course there's also a different use case, is on DC chargers it's a lot easier. Because high level communication.
Yeah.
If you want to do something smart with an AC charger,
That's more difficult, that's true.
you don't have that much communication with it.
Well, when there is a 1511H stack in, it means that there is a internet connection.
Yeah.
So you can do, on top of that internet, you can do things that are not per se fully 1511H.
Yeah, true.
So there is
We-
some kind of starting point there.
We even have even Everest has a feature in there that we advise nobody to use. We can do auto charge with AC. We try to set up we tell the car we're gonna do DC. We get the MAC address, we disconnect and start doing AC. That's outside of spec.
Oh,
Like roughly
that's
half of
helpful.
the
It's smart
roughly
tech.
like half of the EVs like it, but the others
Yeah. I
just
think
stop.
that is
Yeah.
a perfect home feature. For people that charge at home, they have two cars, maybe 3 cars, they plug in, they just want to get reimbursed and don't worry.
Yeah, if you need reimbursement, I mean, I
perfect
don't need.
feature.
Yeah, right. I will just charge I have basically public free charging for everyone who knows my home address.
Yeah.
Because it's in front of the building, everyone can just go there. Don't do it.
So we'll publish your home address
Yeah.
after the show.
Will be in the show
We'll
notes.
take up a link in the show notes. Yeah.
There are ways to find it out. In a way, it's public.
No, but I think for the big crowd that's now upcoming, it needs to be way easier.
They expect bank cards.
Yeah, they have already those bank
And
cards.
why aren't we using bank cards?
Well,
From a lease
well,
car
that-
perspective,
Or
I
do it
understand.
or do it
but
the
not
Chinese way. Show a QR code, tap it, and you're done.
that's
Well, it's-
horrible. That's really
The
so much
the
work.
misunderstanding is that it's just another card, but a bank card is not just another card. It requires different type of hardware
Well,
with much more strict rules and regulations.
It requires a
devices.
secure box.
What
So
has,
it makes your charger a lot more expensive.
what has GLS Bank did? They did something with OCPI and
Yeah, that's what you can build a payment terminal, and there are a few companies doing that. And then when you pay at the terminal, actually OCPI triggers the charge at that specific address.
all goes
Yeah.
via the
Yeah.
cloud,
Yeah.
remote
I
stuff.
thought they did something on top of that, but maybe not.
But the problem is that these payment terminals are extremely expensive. And I know one company that has some kind of sandboxed software solution, Android-based. So you could actually get it into your charger, but as long as it needs to be a separate box, these chargers, these AC chargers, are just too expensive to do it with a box.
Yeah,
And there is another problem with bank cards. And I know that of what we did at the UK, and probably everybody knows it over here, but it does a pre-authorized amount, and that's a pain.
Yeah.
Especially when people say, hey, the pre-authorized amount is 70 euros.
Yeah.
Because you're fast charging here, we don't know, somebody's 70 euros blocked. That's a lot of money.
yeah.
But there should be other ways also.
No, but
Perhaps not today to solve, but there should be other
at
ways.
least the payment scheme is now ready for EV charging. I think back 10 years ago,
Yeah.
they were just misusing something else, and that meant, yeah, we block your card until you're ready with charging. You couldn't use it for something else. Where
I heard somebody doing additional authorizations.
no,
by the way.
so there's a different payment scheme now for EV charging which you can use, which says, okay, we block a certain amount, but you can still go to the kiosk, buy a coffee
While you're charging.
while you're charging. Which, if
Exactly.
you didn't use that payment scheme, your card was blocked.
But
until
isn't that
you
the
were done.
same problem with hotels? You're also blocking something over days.
But there's a hotel payment scheme, and they do a reservation. And I think they were misusing a different scheme.
But
for a
this
while.
is not standardized yet,
Yeah,
isn't it?
there's with Visa and Mastercard have come up with a scheme.
Oh, okay.
I also had
Provide a
I
little bit
know
of
we
feedback
can
into that.
ask all the details.
Yeah.
Another lady.
we
Yeah.
also recently had another issue with that.
Pauline? Pauline?
Also,
With
yeah,
that,
invite them.
Card paying. I think it was like, we have this payment terminal and it's super easy to integrate. So we worked with one charger vendor. It looked like, you just sending reservation one way and things another way. And then we figured out like, but who is responsible for complaints in the payment process? Like if you pay with your card, it's like, okay, but this wasn't me. Who is responsible? And then we
First
figured
phone number you find is responsible.
then they so like the payment card vendor said like no, this is on the charger vendor. The charger vendor is like, no, it should be on the payment terminal vendor. Like, and we in the middle like, then everyone like, it should be Pionix. Like, oh, we're just integrating that shit. And then but actually it should be on the CPMS because only they know who did what. But then you have a third party to integrate. And it was just a big integration nightmare.
And also the payment terminal providers themselves didn't make it easy for us. It's not like all these things just have a USB connector and whatever you plug in, you load a driver, it works. Different connectors, different ways these terminals talk. So even just integrating one
Not
is a nightmare for the manufacturers because you have a CPO, they buy your charging station. The CPO determines which payment terminal they want to use. So you need to do a project with the payment terminal provider, the charger manufacturer, and you as a CPO to get this working. Takes months.
And if you're unlucky, the CPMS is also in the loop because of all this processes while payment.
Yeah, and that's what I want to say. The payment terminal providers until recently had their own protocol.
Yep.
So you had to have a CPMS specific integration
Yeah, also.
with the payment terminal. And that's why I like the payment terminal providers going to OCPI.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes much more standard and the integration is much simpler or much more consistent.
But then it's a separate box, which is also expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you get it. Yeah, so you can only do it when you have, say, at least 8 of these chargers, and then you can buy the separate box for the payment.
Or it's
But,
DC.
I'm now listening to my colleague veterans. We're 13 years later. I think we need some fresh blood in this, not in this meeting, by the way, but in this market to perhaps think of completely different ways. Because what if, I still can't understand that we still 13 years later need separate cards. But I'm pretty sure that somewhere out there in the world we could think of better solutions and then try to fit it in our existing.
We could check with the people that are now working on the new OV system, our public transport system. You can pay
OV
with your
pay,
bank card.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something where.
But
what is your issue? What is your issue with plug and charge? I mean, I don't like that actual implementation. I think it's way too slow. It doesn't work with both of the cars. Blah blah blah. But the idea is, why do we need a card at all? I mean,
indeed, it's perfect. You know, it's those where they have implemented versions or
and it's a
ways
nightmare,
of plug
it's a nightmare
it's
reality. Okay. I totally agree.
No, but yeah.
So you're answering your own question, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're thinking about something new, how about fixing something like that instead of inventing another card?
Yeah, also true. Also true.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the nicest solution is being able to plug in and charge.
Yeah. But why is plug and charge so complicated?
So
perhaps that's interesting also.
I was involved in quite a lot of protocols, but not in 15.11.8. But I mean,
Me neither.
I think what the guys did is like really write down, okay, this is like the kind of message we need, and we communicate between vehicle and charger, and then said, we're done. And then people wanted to start implementing and figured out, but we need a PKI for that. We need somebody to govern who can create certificates, and these things need to be signed by the OEMs. That means the OEMs need to be involved.
Exactly.
And that discussion took like 10 years to get like the first things even done. So the protocol itself, low level, was, I mean, it's still
over-designed.
Over-designed, but it's the rest around it.
And it's supposed to be super secure, but like he said, so if he's the car and I'm the charger, then it specifies this relationship, but implicitly you need from the ecosystem all kinds of additional information. Where do the certificates come from?
Because you have
and that has never been specified clearly.
Yeah. And so basically you have a parent, your manufacturer. I have a parent as a car, the car manufacturer. And then you guys need to agree with an MSP even there that has the driver contract.
Okay. So as I already knew when developing a certain location and products that it was quite complicated, but why couldn't we think of something simpler?
But there's even so stupid things like in IT security, you have this PKI, so this key chain, like chain of trust, like who signs what. And normally what you do is like for engineering purposes, you have your own key chain. And then for plug and charge, if you build something or test something, you should have a car, which is in this development chain. You should have a charger in the development chain. And it just fails there. So this classical best practices like split like development keys from production keys doesn't work, because like how to get a car with a development key, even on the plugfest, on the testables, no one has that. So what I heard from the OEMs, even they have a super hard time to get a car flashed with this development key. So this idea like, oh, we make it perfectly right, over-engineered, fails in reality of too many parties, too big parties, someone have to agree. Yeah. And now what I see behind the scenes is they're backpedaling, like, okay, we will all go in production and maybe just make short-lived keys and try to fix security somehow different. Because reality of interaction of companies, of people, of processes, so that is the breaking thing. The tech in theory is nice, and then comes human interaction reality or corporate interaction reality.
And especially corporate reality steps in as well, because these guys have CISOs that say, yeah, but anything production, that needs to be signed, and you just can't give away any production keys. A production certificate, that can only be done if there's a contract in place. So testing becomes like nightmare.
Yeah, this is what you get with X509 trees, right? It's too complex, too complex for what we try to solve.
No.
So 13 years later, there's still a challenge on the table.
Well, yes,
we're getting there. We're getting there.
I would argue it's still, even though it's 13 years, it's still a relatively young domain compared to traditional fuel, which has had quite a few decades more to mature. And even there, life is not perfect. So I do believe that we still have a lot of work ahead of us to make things more interoperable and easier, etc. But if, for instance, I look at the Dutch market, which is still a front runner, you mentioned you have a lot of different cards. I don't need that many MSP cards in the Netherlands because here roaming is actually quite good.
But I don't have many MSP cards. I have many cards in my wallet. And ideally, I don't bring a wallet. I just want to pay sometimes. So that's my point. It's not about the MSP, because I think I have 2 in the Netherlands. Yeah. Because I have 2 cards.
I have a lot, but you can get them for free. Just like you want to try us on different ones.
Yeah. Is this still valid or is it expired?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
There's so many broken cards in my wallet.
And are you using cards that with a dynamic tariff, or are they still flat fee? Because there are still companies, MSPs, doing flat fee.
No, I have dynamic tariffs, but I know flat fee MSPs. Yeah, and of course, because we're already for ages in this area, we understand the differences. But for my mom at home, it's very complicated. She doesn't know what to choose, because basically, hey, I buy a car. Why do I need to buy a card? Where do I get that card?
Never heard of the company?
Is it my energy supplier or not? No. Where should I go? That's
and the comparison is also a bit unfair, because we just said fuel. I mean, with a classical car, you just drive there, grab some diesel, and then you go somewhere to pay in cash, or like paying as in the supermarket. So we have totally different expectations from EV charging. So we try to build the future in it from day one, and that's just complicated. I think this
there are companies that have the capability to make their chargers work with the kiosk in a petrol station.
Yeah.
So you can even charge, walk in and pay. They do exist, but that's next level integration.
And what we have learned over the years, once you drive EV, you hardly ever come to a petrol station anymore.
Try not to.
Indeed.
But you said that you don't want to bring a card. What would your ideal scenario be to pay then for charging? Or
I think
ideally, it's probably just
I
plugging
don't think the charging cards are the problem, but all the other cards are your
all cards are
Just getting rid of the others.
Hey, I'm the lady here at the table. I bring cards, I bring a phone, and I need to put it somewhere. And
What will you bring anyhow?
I think in the end a watch, for instance.
Or
My
your phone.
watch
Or
or your
phone.
phone.
Yeah.
That's what you bring. And of course with paying by phone is already very advanced.
There are companies already supporting that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't used it myself, but
If you have a standard payment terminal,
You can just do
pay
it.
by phone. That's
But-
Apple Pay or
credit
Google
card.
Pay. Yeah.
But coming back to your remark on the card security and that we can increase security if we just take it to the next level and start implementing
Yeah.
more security on the card. I think
And
if
Everest
you
could be
if you
leading
do
there, right?
if you do that as a single
Come do it.
company, then it won't work. But if you get together with a few key companies or get open source implementations to actually provide the code for it, then the battle is half on. And then all you need to do is come up with a business model where you can still support the older cars, but you reach a higher level of security if
Yeah, that's
you use new technology.
playing backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
But let's play that through. So if we now take Everest, we could easily extend that. So if someone just goes for it. So we have a meanwhile install base of a couple of 100,000 chargers and rapidly growing, I think 30x last year or so if you do it one or twice again, so we have the entire world market. It won't happen in that speed any
good
longer.
marketing,
Yeah, yeah,
good
yeah,
marketing.
So, but my point is like, okay, if any of those Everest-based chargers then in the future gets a software update and we now agree you will donate in some evening hours at your driver, that will be in there. So we could kind of retrofit that into those chargers.
So that's
that would be amazing.
First step, right?
And then they would be ready. So we have on the second track convert the card companies. I think they're super happy to sell more expensive cards. So I think that will be.
the MSPs will be the ones that aren't willing to
We
sell
probably need-
more expensive cards.
Probably need
But I
those.
think these cars
cars
already have
most
this
cars
security.
already
We're
support
just
different
not
protocols.
using it.
Yeah, but while writing OCP 2.0, I really sat down with the companies that provide RFID readers and cards. They have perfect solutions for this. You can buy cards from the biggest manufacturer for this, NXP. You can buy their readers, and you can make this perfectly secure. But you're all locked into NXP.
Yeah.
You can't, as a protocol, say, "Yeah, we only use NXP." We can do that.
Yeah, but
Please
it's
call
not
me in advance. I
necessary.
will buy some shares.
There are
I
standards.
agree. That's not necessary.
There
I
are standards
understand.
for this.
I understand the sales pitch from, well, not specifically NXP, but a market player like that. Ideally, you use their hardware and their solution,
Yeah,
and then
it's not
everything
gonna happen.
works. But it's not necessary because there are already very clearly defined RFID protocols. You just need to pick one and start implementing it.
But the
My
most
fair des, what is it?
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
the most ones are symmetrical keys. The most
Yeah,
cheaper
hook.
cars are symmetrical
Yeah,
keys.
so-
That's a key distribution problem with our cards. Because that means we need to tell everybody in the industry what the...
We have
key
a
is.
we have a protocol for that.
Yeah, but still, how easy is it to leak the key that you need to read and write a card?
Sure, but it's more difficult than what we could do now, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
copy it, right?
Yeah.
Sure. It's not perfect.
No.
But it's better.
Oh, you're sure? Yeah.
So
And
that's
in the end, the question is, I believe we need to go to a different way of payment, whether it's a more secure card or completely other ways. Because in the end, it's either staying upfront with the market, so we as a market need to develop, or at a certain moment, shit hits the fan because the market is big, fraud.
That happened a couple of
But
years
it
ago when
wasn't big enough.
I was still writing specification at the Chaos Computer Club conference in Hamburg, roughly like 6 or 7 years ago during Christmas. They published that these cars were not secure. And I was like, there goes my Christmas. Now I need to start writing stuff and we need to fix it, and now it will be fixed because I'd been flagging we need to fix this.
But it was apparently
And
still
nothing
too
followed.
small. It was
Nothing-
still too small. The problem was still too small.
Yeah, probably.
So either we wait for the really big problem and it will change, or companies
At the
together
moment,
will
it
start
feels like the credit card. If you look at the early days, you could just steal any number and pay with it.
Yeah.
So it was just not worth fixing. I was like, okay, this is some percent of losses, so we will do some risk mitigation, blah, blah, blah. We will fix it commercially. So And it changed. It took decades. So, and it was just a too small problem that you couldn't just write it off.
Yeah, but at the moment, at least the talk I've seen at ICNC 1.5 years ago from the guys from Last Mile Solution, I think, and Sebastian from Spiri, did an amazing talk on how to fraud the e-mobility industry.
Yeah.
There's companies even now saying, yeah, we're new EMSP. They sign up with a roaming hub. They give out cards. And if you as a CPO want to get an invoice paid, they don't even exist.
But typically,
that's the level we got.
If you look on the
that's
credit
a different type of fraud, right?
Yeah,
but if you look on the credit card industry, how they fix it, like they applied some, let's say not AI, but let's say statistics, fraud detection. So they just try to find it in the big data of interaction, like, okay, that looks like fraud, I will block that. And afterwards, we got like, I don't know, phone authentication of each credit card payment. Yeah.
There is somebody doing that. I don't know who, but
there's an MFA doing MFA.
Yeah. So when you start charging, you'll get on your phone, hey, you start charging, approve.
Yeah. So if you don't, it stops.
And then you have MFA.
That could also be an option.
It makes
still have an unsecured card, but register a phone number with it.
But then
Or
your
register
grandmom can't charge me if he has no phone.
Well, even my mom, grandma, they have a phone, a mobile phone.
Everybody has nowadays, but yeah.
At least over here, yeah. Germany probably the same. It's
just saying, like.
Or in the car, you can also build something in the car that you say, okay, authorize.
But that will take a bit.
Like a charge.
Yeah.
They're not so fast.
Except when you do it with CarPlay and stuff, right?
The app, you could have an app inside.
That just says,
CarPlay.
Yeah, I'm now here, start charge.
Yeah. Do you ever go back into the car if you start charging at the AC charger? So
Yeah,
purely,
to put my card back. To put my card back in the car.
but would you look at it?
And then you have to go back in the car.
I look there to make sure it charges.
So swiping is
I can see the LED blink. I know it's charging, and I just walk away.
And this is for a really stupid problem. I'm not always the one getting back to the car, deconnecting it from the charger again. So we need to have that card in the car.
Yeah.
Frustrating
No,
problem.
The protocols are ready for multiple cards. But I don't think anybody implement parent IDs in the industry?
It's very rare. So, sometimes I get questions on it, but it's extremely rare. Even worse, a lot of implementations in chargers that are not Everest don't even check the parent ID tag. So it doesn't work.
Yeah. We have this feature, but nobody's using it. So even if somebody would say, we give you 2 cards so you don't have this problem anymore.
It's been in there since OCPP 1.2 or 1.5, 1.2 even, I think.
In 1.5 it was. I wasn't part of 1.2, so that's before my...
So it has been there, but on the other hand, we also had, so if you do use a card for authentication, we had the status concurrent TX. There's a simultaneous transaction with the idea then you can do fraud detection. Not realizing when we wrote it that sometimes a charger loses a connection and needs to wait a bit before it sends in transactions, and by that time you're at another charging station and you get blocked.
Messy reality. This is the problem with standards, if they're just made on a table, not vetted with real world.
So concurrent TX remained in there, but we always advised nobody to use it.
I think it's out of 2.0.
Yeah, so but in the 1.6,
I know,
which is still the most used version.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of discussion on the cards. Are there other customer experience things that make your blood boil or need attention?
No display. The fact that you as a driver arrive at a charging station, AC one, you plug in the cable. Yeah, it's green, red, or blue, and if it starts blinking red, something is wrong. The charger knows if it's the cable, the RFID card, or the car, or the charger itself. Without a display, you have no clue.
A blinking light.
But even on the DC charger, I heard that on Electro Trucker YouTube channel, probably all watch them. Watch him. He said like, if I go with a truck on a charging station, sometimes it charges super slow. Who is the fault? It's the fault of the charging station because it's half broken. Is it the cable? If it's the car? Because sometimes it's worst. Also with my private car, why is it 50 kilowatt? Should I repark and try again with another one? or is it just the temperature and the car doesn't accept more? So
Yeah,
this
I would picking your right charging spot when you enter a DC site. That's really
but like if
thing,
you,
right? Oh, is this room enough? Are these grouped together? What do you think?
But
you
if
guys,
you
guys have such a luxury problems. Mine charges maximum as 46 kilowatts. I don't see that problem, but that's my car.
Oh,
okay,
Yeah.
that's your problem.
this is the solution.
We should always park at a fast charge
Next to
you.
Yeah, I will never use more. The old Ampere E is super slow.
So screens are needed.
Yeah.
Also for price transparency. So you need to somehow
Tell
know, either through your app on the phone, but when you're at a charger, what do I need to pay? Or what can I expect to pay? Because it's difficult to predict upfront how much it will be exactly. That's also not when you tank gasoline.
But the pricing is hard to predict, because if you use this card of
this
Recharge,
ecosystem
it's 53 cents per kilowatt hour.
But then,
whatever you do.
yeah, but then at least if I need to pay myself, I want to be informed. Oh, if I would choose something else for my payment, either direct payment, it would save me money. I would love to be informed.
So
You're right.
And if you're interested in information, I think it should be available. But right across from my driveway, there's a public charger from Allego, and it costs 80 plus cents per kilowatt hour.
AC.
80.
I was a
And
part
if
of
I
that
walk
part.
a few hundred meters, I need to walk the dog anyway. I have a Vattenfall charging station, and it only costs 32 cents.
Yeah.
So that's more than 50 cents. There's 50 cents difference.
How come?
I think that
Is
one
this,
Everest
is this the open market?
I think
So-
the cheap
No.
one is Everest based. I know those. Anyway,
No, but the point is more, so you have a AC charger that's more expensive than a fastnet charger along a highway, which already doesn't make sense. But the Vattenfall charger, which is much cheaper, is almost never used.
So people don't even know.
They don't look at
No,
it. It's a
but
lease
because-
car, plug in,
Yeah,
go.
because it's lease. In our where I live, we had an agreement that those with the lease cars would charge at the charger in front of my house because it was the most expensive one, and we would leave the other one, which was in a different concession, different tender, lower prices. We would keep it open for the private driver.
Maybe your neighbors have the same
that's
agreement, but they didn't tell you yet.
So those private drivers, they know it within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
They are aware of it, and they are willing to walk
But I
another
think
100 meters.
Vattenfall, especially in Eindhoven and the same where I live in Breda, in the North Brabant Limburg tender, there was a fixed amount agreed. And when energy prices went up, they really had to go back to the tender giver, like, please, we need to raise it because we was just losing too much money because the energy prices went up after the Ukraine war. But they're still the cheapest ones out there. And a lot of people, even where I live, everybody has a driveway. And then at one point, everybody started using the Vattenfall chargers. Why? It was cheaper than charging at home. So everybody really started using the Vattenfall.
I made calculations, and for me, the investment, I have a bit of a weird house, so to get to the cabinet would take a lot of digging. So for me, it was cheaper to use the Vattenfall charger instead of having a home charger. There was no way I would get my investment back.
Yeah. But there, the price differences, they are caused by different market models, open market model, but also that there are different tenders over time. So you have, on average, I think, tender takes 10 years. So they have a couple of years where they accompany the winner of the tender or multiple winners. They can install the chargers, and then they can operate them for a few more years, but then another party gets the new installment, and that's creating different
this sounds really Dutch, because what we see in Germany, our biggest problem is, yes, you see price difference of a factor 2 easily at the same charging station. So if you go to, I don't know, Aral charger and you pay there with their favorite card, it's maybe half the price as if you go with another card. So you have this European R4 regulation that you are not discriminating someone else. So you need at least one way of paying there, which is very expensive, and then you can give the same price to all the roaming guys. And there's currently some court cases in Germany around that, because actually it's like a cartel problem that, like, oh yeah, my own cards are cheap, and then for roaming I charging hell out of it. And this is, in my opinion, it's criminal almost.
It's certainly not helpful.
Yes, and I mean, and if you think further, like the grandma example, with gasoline, you maybe see price differences of some percent between different places, but not some 100%. And this has to stop, and regardless of what.
I agree.
And this transparency, you see the signs everywhere, and would be lovely to get there. And it actually, and honestly, I would even love to get it more complicated in terms of why is the price always the same over the entire day? If you look on electricity markets, it's so cheap at night and so cheap when the sun shines.
Tesla has that. If you drive a Tesla, but the
It's
Tesla
just
supercharger,
getting there.
it adjusts during the day, and
I think that's totally smart.
and nobody's complaining because Tesla is super good with providing good information to their drivers.
And Tesla is relatively cheap. They're even cheaper.
They're
than,
super cheap.
But also gasoline prices go up and down during the day. So you can do that, and no one complains about the information mechanism. So actually our world will get more complicated, but we need the proper tooling that everyone can live with it.
Now, and a lot of tools, at least looking at the protocol level, a lot of this stuff is in place on the protocol level.
For sure it
It's
is.
just the stuff above that.
Getting it implemented, we can help.
Because if the CPO or the MSP aren't providing the information towards the charging station, the charging station can't show it. It's again the chicken egg problem where charging stations aren't displaying it, so the CPOs aren't implementing it to send it over because the chargers can't send it anyhow. But also the other way around, manufacturers aren't implementing this in the charging station because the CPOs aren't sending them.
And the strange thing, at least in my case, is that at home, where I have a dynamic electricity contract, dynamic pricing, my charger does it, my car does it, it's perfectly arranged. And even my grandma, who is now more and more interested in energy because of the high prices, they understand how to do it. It's not that difficult. So and in our case, I think on the public chargers, we need to do it also from, at least in the Netherlands. I don't know how it is in Germany.
Not really. I think we need
grid congestion.
We need the transparency, and we need to remove the outliers, like this factor of 2, depending on which card you're holding in front.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently did a road trip with my family through Scotland and with an EV. So ID bus, not that big range, but okay-ish. And from Germany, I used to okay, you get the cheapest price if you sign up for the app of that charging station, because then you're getting the better price instead of card payment. Card payment is typically 50% more expensive than just downloading the free app. So I did that in every station, took me 15 minutes. My family was totally annoyed. And it barely gave me any price benefit, if at all. And sometimes no, you have a German phone, I'm not allowing you. What the heck?
You can't sign up if you're
can't fuel your German car in UK. And
you drive on the wrong side of the road, so I do understand that from the UK.
But still a lot of things which we can improve.
Given the time, I would like to do one last round, things that you really want to get in, or perhaps topics for a next time, or if the audience has topics for a next time, they can comment below the videos. So if I do round, I start with you, Marco. What is important to say? What we haven't said yet.
So I think we just scratched it at the end, this entire dynamic tariffs and grid congestion. I think what I see currently in the industry is that the next big milestone is getting after that. So meanwhile, we know how to fix plug and charge, we know how to fix that, but this entire grid integration is the next frontier. Sure, there's ideas, but I think you recently did a LinkedIn post oh, there's 10 different protocols. No one even knows which protocol it will be. And
Modbus.
But it's also one of them.
It's already.
But this is writing a letter. It depends on what you put in, right?
It's Modbus and Sunspec.
Yes, exactly.
So that's true already.
And that's not secured now.
And I think so. This is the next frontier, and what I find super interesting, because I'm an open source evangelist, I think open source is more than just code. It's a kind of way of companies working with each other. And if I see that in the car industries, everyone now tries to be Tesla on software-defined vehicles, and they try to do it open source collectively. And I think we can learn as an industry and deploy that in beyond Everest, in the back office, in roaming, everywhere, in the development of protocols, being more interactive. I think we can be way faster and be more cost efficient if we are deploying those techniques.
Fully agree. Yeah, the idea with the OCPI was to have it just pull requests on GitHub. Huh? That's how we started. Something else happened, and that's okay, but that's how it started. But I
you started it.
Yes,
So still kudos
you're
for you.
talking anyway.
yeah.
What's your point?
I think I'll just connect with that would be a good topic. The integration with the grid. I think that's of interest for home charging, and what kind of home charging setup is possible to create. You see a lot of energy companies moving in that direction. That's really interesting to see.
But it's even beyond. So it's also on public charging. And if we're already getting there, so will bi-directional ever happen, or is it a big bubble?
That's
Can
a good
relate
question.
to it?
Yeah. Although I think that with public charging at this moment, it's all pilot based. Yes, we have these Renault 5s over here that are doing on Utrecht, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But if I have an old Tesla, no way that I can do bi-directional charging somewhere. And even with
the old
Kia,
one, it's hacked in. You can do it, but out of spec.
And then you can
let's check.
I want to talk to you. Talk to our CTO.
all those pilot projects are about proving that the technology can work,
but it works.
The business cases underneath to make it commercially work,
And
they are almost never there.
And it's the same for home charging. It's very complex to create a product that's actually doable to be a company doing that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people are moving home charging away, say they give it to other companies.
No.
So they can bear the losses.
it's just a messy, interactive industry problem. Like too many players have to agree on something.
Yeah.
I think what would be interesting for next talk is discussions on business models we would think would fail, because we also thought smart charging would fail, we thought OCPI would fail. We had a lot of thoughts why things from a business perspective would not happen, and some of them succeeded, some of them didn't. But some learnings or discussions on the business behind all those technical things we're saying here.
I like that a lot.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
In the end, you need to make money. Yeah.
And you?
I don't know.
You don't?
I would love to see the energy discussion. I mean, looking at the dynamic pricing, looking at how do you interface with the grid, with your home charger, also public, and then how does this bi-directional stuff feed into that? Because that's where the interesting stuff is.
Yep.
And especially now with private drivers coming in, I have so many friends now buying EVs, second-hand EVs. The Model 3s are so cheap, everybody seems to be buying those. Hey, Robert, which charger do I need to buy? You're in this business. Do you have a home automation system? Yeah. Look up which charger it can support. I mean, that's your starting point probably. Yeah. And the rest is like, okay.
OCPP. OCPP based.
Yeah. No, that's one.
You have this German,
that's
this German project, EVCC. Maybe you've heard of it.
Yep. We have colleagues using it.
I mean, using it at home. It is.
No, EVCC IO is.
It's Apache
VCS.
2 licensed,
It's
and they do some contribution to because they also have a day job. So it's and what they have built is really amazing.
Yeah.
So much they can work with a huge amount of cars, a huge amount of chargers. All kinds of different solar systems and batteries. It's pretty cool.
We've talked to them already, and like we need to just figure out a way to get Everest integrated with it.
But I think the problem here is actually not a technical one. Like, sure, you can build your one charger, your one car in that one grid location to make it work. But the biggest problem I see, and that's more like a society business problem, like, you have 100 of players on each of those layers, and they all have to agree. Then you have to have European legislation, certification, grid codes, standards, business models, how to pay, and that's so messy. That's actually a problem. It's not a technical one, but an alignment problem, like on a European society scale.
So it starts with the business models, I think.
Also.
So the model
It's part of it.
And what kind of legislation is missing? I think we were in a European research project or a German research project, and you really start looking at, okay, if you start doing bi-directional, technically, that's like the technical stuff is like 10% missing. The biggest block is legal taxation, like what happens if you charge at home and you discharge at your company, and the other way around.
I would do the other way around, by the way.
Our advice.
Do it the other way.
Do it the other way around.
So if I can say what I sort of expected that at least in an open source discussion, initiatives also like Citrine OS would come up. So that might be a topic for another time. There's so much more to discuss on the open source part. But yeah, so I had hoped that a bit of light would be shown on other initiatives as well.
Like
but beyond
Citrine.
that,
Oh, we can do that.
Oh, we have no more time.
Yeah, sorry, Tana, we didn't mention Citrine OS.
So no, we really need to wrap up for today. But thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed the discussion again. Really enjoyed the spirit of the discussion. And yeah, hopefully I see you guys or some of you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
You're welcome.
Very nice.
Thank you.